Hello, happy Wednesday. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Ski is waiting for you to.
Ooh, I heard you. It was a volume issue on my end. Hello, good morning, guys. Good to hear you, not to see you yet, but I'm glad you're here. The U team, were you made co-hosts? Oh no, Yolanda, it automatically defaulted to you being host. I don't think that's right. Yolanda, if you can hear me, can you transfer host back to me? I think our producer dropped off. I don't know how it automatically went to you.
All right, where do I go to do that?
You go to participants.
Okay.
And then if you see my name, I'm Emily. You should be able to click on me and say make host.
Okay, click on you, click on Emily, and
we got our hosts back. I think we're good. Problem solved. Crisis averted. Thank you, though.
You're the bomb.
So glad you're here. No worries. I was like, oh no, Kevin disappeared.
All right, glad I could help, even though I didn't.
And I'm actually going to leave my camera off just because my internet has been terrible today.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Do you want to make sure that you have someone as a co-host, like myself and the you, just in case something happens again?
Yeah, I'm trying to set that up.
Amazing. You rock.
Awesome. Yeah. So Emily, you should be co-host now as well.
Got it. Ooh, this graphic is beautiful, y'all.
Yeah, so making sure everything looks good there.
Yeah, it looks great.
We're not going to start off with the share, right? So should I close it down, or do you want to start off with the share?
Oh, Emily, how are we starting off? Are you introducing?
Yeah, I'll give just like a short intro. Welcome everyone in. I assume we'll probably have some folks trickling in here in a few minutes. Normally takes a moment or two, but then I'll welcome everyone. Turn it over to you all in just like a minute or two.
Okay.
Sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Yay.
You guys excited?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing great.
I was like, are we gonna go off camera? And then I'd be like, you just roll out.
We're playing musical chairs.
Roll out. Roll out. I'll just be like,
in the stud.
Oh wait.
Oh,
I'm can't be that close to the light. That's all right.
Yeah, you can slide back and come out this way.
Oh wait, Nakai, go back. Oh.
We've got residents in the studio, so we're trying to use our office for the first time as a studio. So no,
It's going great. Y'all are crushing it.
Lo is killing me with these lights though.
Down with all that. Okay.
How am I killing you with the light?
I think you should all just post up on the beanbag if you ask me.
Exactly.
I didn't really care for the light.
Yeah, can you pull us off camera?
Hmm?
Just pull us off camera.
It's time for you to go.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I okay. It might work out because our appointment's at 1.
That's balanced. What color did you set on to?
Did you hear ski? I'm cracking up.
I see. Your appointment's at 1.
You go glare
Do we need to leave my phone there?
You know what? Emily, are y'all hiring?
Not right now, but we'll take all the help we can get. So
It's okay. Go put it back. Put it back there. Right there. Emily, are y'all hiring? I'm about to quit.
not currently, but maybe one day. That would be great. I would love to have more.
Do y'all have an HR department we can borrow?
No, we also don't have that, but I can probably find you one.
Exactly.
It seems like you all figured everything out there. But just call for help if you need it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and kick things off. I assume we'll have a couple folks trickling in. I know a handful of people said that they might jump in noon for lunchtime, but I'm really excited to be kicking off our second TechLife Live series this afternoon with the team from the U, and I'll let them fully introduce themselves and their services to you. But we have Nakai, LoLo, and George, just incredible rock stars here in Central Ohio that have been developing and building and giving services to support urban entrepreneurship. I've been so honored and excited to get to form a partnership with them and work together with them with the work that I do at Give Back Hack. And so today we're here to talk about why Black entrepreneurship spaces are necessary, where did they come from, why do we continue to do them, and why are they valuable? So I'm going to turn it over to you all to kick it off for us this afternoon. Thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited for this.
Yay, we're super excited.
Yeah,
too.
thanks for having us. We're super excited.
So, I think that we should probably just go ahead and get started because in our presentation, we do introduce ourselves. So, but thank you so much, Emily, for thinking of us. This is definitely a topic. Black entrepreneur spaces is a topic that, we feel passionately about and we've talked several times about. So I'm really excited to dialogue with everyone today. And before we get started, I do want to mention that this is like a safe space. We do want to use this opportunity to really open up to dialogue about, this particular topic and to just shed information and light on some of the things that we will cover. So go ahead, Zabreski.
All right. Zoom with its magic windows. Okay. So our presentation's up.
Can you put it on the screen? I can't see. My vision is bad.
So obviously we're here to talk about Black entrepreneur spaces, why or why not, right? So we wanted to break it down visually because most of us are great visual learners. I know I myself am. How about you guys?
We're over here switching our screens. So I did not wear my glasses today, so I cannot see. All right. So we're here to talk about Black entrepreneur spaces. But first, before we really dive into it, we really want to, we can go to the next one, take the opportunity to introduce who we are.
So I'm Nakai Willis. Everybody calls me Kay because Nakai is so hard to pronounce. But I have the privilege of serving as the CEO here at Urban Accelerator X and working with my two amazing partners. We're each a force individually, but we're definitely a movement together. So I'm super excited to be able to serve with them. And then we have...
I'm Ski, George Zabreski, hence the Ski, retired Air Force person. Did a little bit of entrepreneurship stuff and one of the founders, original founders of the U.
Also, and I'm Lolo, just Lolo. And I am the CMO here at the U, but I feel like all of us wear a bunch of different titles. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. The cool thing about us talking about this particular subject of Black entrepreneur spaces is that we created the U. And so there are some people that I'm pretty familiar with who are on today, and then there's some new people who are not familiar with us. So I do want to talk about, like how Black entrepreneur spaces and that subject is really aligns with what it is that we do. So, Ski, if you could go to the next slide. Is it still sharing?
Yeah, I think, are we good now, Emily? Yep, good, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we got you. We're back.
Awesome, perfect. Okay, so who we are. So our vision here at the U, we envision a world where systematic oppression is not an obstacle for Black and Brown businesses. So what we do is we really focus on providing curriculum and material for businesses of color. So we fulfill this by developing and fostering like the whole ecosystem, entrepreneur ecosystem to really service Black and Brown businesses. So our mission is to provide a safe space where urban entrepreneurs can operate above systematic barriers and gain resources, education, just a lot of the tools that are available to other businesses that are not Black and Brown. And so we want to bridge the gaps of access. And this is something that is like a really important conversation for us, because a lot of times when we are dealing with our, I would say our demographic or our audience, we notice that there's barriers that a lot of people can't see. And so it's not just about reaching the actual resources or the education, like physically being able to get there, but there's a lot of things that historically have happened in our community that act as barriers. There's a lot of things that, as far as mentally, act as barriers. And so we're really excited to get into that. So is there anything you guys want to add about who we are, like our mission that we do here?
I think too, when we talk about a safe space, we're talking about a space where they're not necessarily defined by the barriers that they have. And so just being able to link them in with resources, but also having that community of just understanding of where a person is coming from is super important. Did you want to add anything?
Okay, perfect. So what are Black entrepreneur spaces? So when we started doing this, I think that this was a really good question. It's something that we talked with Emily about, like, okay, what do we necessarily define as a Black entrepreneur space? And so everyone has their different perception of it, but what we think it is what spaces that provide people of color an atmosphere where they don't have to code switch. And so we'll talk about that. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that term or has even had to partake in code switching, but it's a place where you feel comfortable, where you don't have to be something else. Secondly, a space that caters to breaking down the barriers that people of color face first before trying to feed the education or, enhance their business to be a certain space. So you understand that this person may come in and have barriers, again, that I probably cannot see, but still being able to meet them where they are. And so then lastly, spaces to meet Black entrepreneurs where they are, and then also celebrate, the side hustles or the, just the smaller businesses. So the difference of the Black spaces versus other spaces, like, aren't all spaces the same? Mm-hmm. And so we think of these spaces as safe spaces. So no code switching, experience over profit. And so what experience over profit mean is that usually these spaces are not focused on the scalable business, the unicorn businesses. How can this business bring profit? It's more so about giving an experience to help build a sustainable Black business. And then third, culturally competent. So an atmosphere that, again, is culturally competent. You don't have to do that code switching. You're able to feed them the information in a way that they'll receive it. And then lastly, breaking barriers. So being able to break barriers first before trying to give a certain type of education. So yeah, I was gonna say this is your area.
So when we talk about life as a Black entrepreneur, specifically having to navigate in white spaces, that's where the term code switching comes into play. And I think a lot of times we think of code switching as just in our language, but when you really think about environment, most of our communication is actually in your body language, the way that you're dressed, the way maybe your hair is in a certain setting, or, you know, did you come basically prepared, right? But code switching is literally defined as the practice of alternating between two or more languages, where a lot of times Black entrepreneurs find themselves having to constantly code switch to navigate through spaces where resources have been made available. And we actually were just having this conversation of, it's not that these spaces couldn't be culturally competent and allow us to not code switching. It's almost designed, and it could be another barrier, and it could be something that was just overlooked, or just not as intentionally created to be a safe space for people of color.
So we're going to take some time and we're going to go through the next 3 slides, and they're really just to be thought provoking. You don't have to actually answer the questions and put them in the chat or anything like that. It's just to think like, you know, have you experienced this? Then we'll kind of dive into it. And I hope at the end, everyone feels comfortable enough to be able to have an open dialogue about this topic. So again, the next slides you do not have to answer in the actual chat. It's just something to like, okay, ask yourself, have you ever been in this situation? And then if it's yes, how did it make you feel? If it's no, then you may not have an emotional connection to that experience, but be mindful that there are people who actually have experienced that, and like imagine what it might feel like to be in that position.
So the first one is, have you ever considered changing your hair to appear more professional? So really just think about that. And if you can't yourself, like Lo said, if you can't, if that doesn't resonate with you, if that's not a feeling or a thought or a question that you've ever had to ask yourself, just allow this to be a moment to empathize with someone that does have to think about that before they go into a professional setting, even if it's just a new setting that they haven't been in before and they want to, quote, make the best first impression. Right. So empathizing with what that person might have to go through in order to even just have the thought of, oh, I need to change this thing about myself to give a more professional appearance.
And also think about what you consider as professional when it comes to hair as well, because oftentimes we might not even know it, but we might have these biases previously created. So it's like, what do you perceive as professional in the workplace when you're thinking about hair? So
have you ever feared asking a question because you may be judged? So you know, if I could put this in context, have you ever been in a Zoom call or something like this, where at the end they're like, hey, if you have questions, you know, drop them in the chat. This is our time for Q&A. And then nobody puts anything in there. Or maybe there's a couple questions, but it's something that was answered in the slides. And it feels like, oh man, they could have got that. But most of the time, there are follow-up emails to those meetings where people didn't feel comfortable asking that question in a group setting. And so just thinking about what does that look like for someone who is already in a new space? They're navigating, you know, this where they might have gotten some information that might have gone over their heads, but not wanting to be the person to ask the question because you don't want to be judged about not knowing the information, or feeling like, man, maybe this is something I already should have known, even if it's just the language or use of words, or jargon for a business.
Then next.
Okay. Have you ever switched your language, tone, or pitch to seem more professional? So, you know, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but just think about, you know, we all do this across all cultures. There's a different way that you speak when you're amongst your friends and it's happy hour. There's a different way that you speak at home with your children or with your spouse or with your roommate, right? And then there's a different way that you speak at work. And I think what people don't recognize is that a lot of times for people of color, that comes with additional layers, because there's, if I'm at a setting where I work with all people that are from my culture, there's a professional tone that I can set, but still be myself, versus if I'm in a completely different space, or if I'm the only person of color or the minority in that setting, you know, I would be, you know, intimidated or feel like I need to switch it up even further to be able to fit into that setting. And so you might, if you yourself or a person of color, if you have friends who are, you might have heard, like, I put on my white voice, right, for customer service, or like I put on my customer service voice. So these are things that we talk and laugh about in our community, but are we really doing a deeper dive to consider what effects these have, especially emotionally, especially mentally, when this is a space that you're trying to grow into? So, that constant reinforced notion that who you are is not good enough to operate in this space.
Yes. And I think that's super important to point out, is that that's the barrier. That's the barrier that we're talking about, those invisible barriers of like, hey, why do we have to create these separate spaces? Well, this is really important. This is showing you that this is why we have to create those spaces, because it could be something as simple as slang. Or, you know, like we may say something where it's like, y'all, you might be relaxed with how you say your words, and to someone else, they may look down on you. You might come across as not as professional. You know, they might not take you as seriously, all because of your word usage. But that doesn't mean that you may not have a great idea. You may have a wonderful business plan. You may have, you know, the next Google or Amazon, but all because of how you say a word, or maybe not knowing the meaning to something, can really set a difference in how you're perceived. And so that's the reason why we think it's really important to have these spaces, because we want to take that out of the equation of just because you might use slang or something that is, you know, historically word uses that's historically used in the Black community, you're not perceived as ghetto or as not
or uneducated
So.
And then also because languages don't transfer. You know, if you think about when you transfer a book to a different language, there's some things that are going to be lost that are only in the language of that culture, right? So a way that I like to illustrate that is what we call the habitual be. So if I'm translating and someone says, you know, Lo be designing, right? I might take that. If I'm not familiar with the culture, I might say, okay, that person meant to say Lo does designing, right? But no, what that person is saying is that, no, she habitually does that. Like she does that all the time. That's her bag, right? So she be designing, right? So those things don't translate if you're just literally trying to change the language. So giving a person almost like a translator, a space where they can be translated, makes a big difference. So obviously there's some things historically, you know, I think a lot of times we focus on these, not because they're the defining factors for people, but because it's important to reference, you know, why people are in a certain position that they're in. So systematically, there's been consistently for people of color, a lack of resources. They've been consistently excluded from generational wealth methods, as well as mentorship is limited in the community. There's scarcity in success stories. And when there is success, there tends to be competition over collaboration, as well as social economic barriers. And all of these things are super important to note, again, not to define a people or a culture, but just to understand what they are trying to grow through before they even get to your doorstep. And that's a lot of the times, that's why people are starting businesses. So for us, this space was super important because when a person of color is starting a business, a lot of times it's not about legacy building. It's about, I need money for my day-to-day cash flow right now. Mm-hmm. And so being able to put them in a position to get those type of results sooner, which is a lot of times why you see the side hustle, right? And there's no money put aside for things like legal matters and things like that, is because, hey, I'm trying to meet all of these barriers that have been generationally a part of my story, you know, so trying to meet all of those things as well as reach into hopefully another realm of social economic success.
Yeah, so it's definitely something to think about. I don't think I'm going to say it the way the person did who delivered it, but it's kind of like, you know, being at a track meet and you're in a race and you're about to run the 100-meter dash. But I want you to think, or like, you know, for everyone who is on, there oftentimes with history and everything that has happened in history, Black people have literally had to start at the 200-meter dash line versus the 100-meter dash. And so it's like we're playing catch up to get to the finish line and hit that same success. So there's like a different type of barrier, you know, like we're kind of behind in the race. And so that's why it's super important to have these spaces, because it allows us to hyper focus on, okay, how can we take out that gap, that 100-meter gap, and get you up here to start with everyone else. So that poses the question of, you know, are separate spaces needed? You know, and of course, we've dedicated our lives to this cause because we've created a space specifically for people of color. But, you know, this is a question I would like everyone to ask themselves, and hopefully we can dialogue after this presentation. You know, do you all feel like separate spaces are needed? We had a really great conversation about this yesterday of like, sometimes I definitely feel that they're needed, but I also kind of compare it to integration versus segregation. And like, you know, back in the day, does it hurt us more than it helps us? You know, are we assimilating too much into mainstream and not, you know, uplifting this type of culture? But then on the flip side, we need these spaces as well. We feel like we need these spaces to be able to hyper focus on that gap area and fill in that gap so that businesses still get that same opportunity to be successful, to grow, to expand, to be sustainable. And Ski, I'm gonna make you say your analogy yesterday towards the end. Okay. Oh yeah, this is your opportunity. this is your time to shine, Ski.
Let's go.
So I've been fortunate to have some of these heavy, deep conversations with my peers, with family members. I have a multiracial family. And so I've kind of dialed it back, right? I like to take the race out of the conversation and just talk about how we as humans are very tribal. And so I think back to high school and you had your different social hierarchies, right? You had the football team, you had the baseball team, you had band, you had track. I did track and bowling. And you always had that one person in your high school that kind of got along with everybody, right? Didn't need to fit into a specific space. And I think that's what we are as the founders, and it's the type of people we try to bring in. You know, we have allies from all different fields that help us with our mission to get this entrepreneurial education to our audience. But to take it back to high school, you know, there's a shared commonality that happens at different levels of sports, different levels of other type of engagements that carry along with you throughout life. So when you meet somebody at a networking event or something like that, you realize they played football too, or they had this shared experience in band. There's a different language that you can start to have with that person now. And having been through a lot of, you know, I've been through Y Combinator Accelerator, I've been through other incubators, and I had to do a lot of catch up to understand the arena that I was playing in. And I had a lot of inferiority complex. I had a lot of issues with, do I really belong here? Is this really a space for me? Just because of that initial barrier that was nobody else's fault. And I've been blessed. Every community I've been a part of has been super welcoming. The least of which is, or the most receptive has been Columbus. You know, since I've been here since 2018, it's just been absolutely amazing. And I'm often getting the conversations, especially after the state of affairs we had over the past year, of how can we be more engaged and how can we be more involved. So it's not so much an issue with, you know, oh, there's all these racist places and everybody just want, no, it's nothing like that at all. There's just things that are in place in our society today that are partially because we're just human. We all have our biases, we all have our prejudice, all of us. You know, I may walk down a certain street and cross to the other side just like anybody else. That's just being human and smart, right? So it's just a matter of trying to make it comfortable for that first time that person enters the space, our potential client enters the space, and they know that, okay, I've got this shared experience with the people I'm dealing with. There's trust issues, this, that, and the other, that for, you know, whether it's right or wrong, that are not present when they come and visit our space, because there's just this assumption that they're going to be treated fairly and kindly. Not that there's any real reason, but perception is law, right? Perception is reality. So eliminating that first barrier really helps us get into the business of teaching entrepreneurship, right? And leveraging the network of great people like Give Back Hack, the Rev1 community, all of the ecosystem that Columbus has, which again is just absolutely amazing. It just accelerates that whole process and eliminates a lot of those barriers.
No, for sure. So we want to end off before we open it up. We'll pass it back to Emily. Here's the next one. Before we pass it back to Emily, we want to end off about ways to play your part, you know, in this, whether you are a Black entrepreneur, whether you have an entrepreneur support organization, maybe you are a mentor, maybe you are a business owner. There's a way that we all can build to the ecosystem. And before we start going over the ways, I just want to point out that we all need each other. So like your success, the business down the street success, it all plays a part in this interconnected like system. And so even though we may not feel like, oh, this person's success has nothing to do with me, but in reality, there are ways that it does, whereas it helps the overall economy if this person is successful. You know, we have become recently have become like a huge place for fashion. Well, that wouldn't have happened if there wasn't all of these successful fashion designers, you know, stores, businesses that were really pushing that movement here in Columbus. And then that brought so much attention to Columbus, which helped in other areas that had nothing to do with fashion. And so if you think that the person next to you or their success rate has nothing to do with you, it does. It has everything to do with our economy and sustaining our economy and building up. So there are different ways for us each to play our role. So you want to read them more?
Oh yeah, I can read them. So some of the things that you can do to play your part is support an urban entrepreneur support organization, whether that looks like hiring them for their services, because a lot of times these are places that are putting their money back into their efforts for the community. So even if you're hiring them for services or spending money there, you can be aware that that's going right back out to the community as well. You can mentor a person of color from an open mindset, meaning a lot of times mentorship gets put in this magical place, but a lot of times it's very gritty and you get to know like a person's inner workings. So you almost, even if it wasn't a person of color, you would have to approach that with an open mindset. So just being willing to have that same approach there. You can educate yourself on the barriers presented to the urban community. A lot of times when someone is uneducated about the systematic things that have been documented to actually happen to this community, a lot of times it just takes a little bit of learning about that and understanding that, hey, these aren't just things that someone made up. Like these are things that have actually happened, that this community is surviving and thriving through. And I think that that's, you know, deserves to be celebrated. But also you can work at providing culturally competent curriculum and or resources in spaces that you have control of, even if that just means in an environment around you. I actually read a story, and I won't go on a tangent, which my partners know that I usually will. But I read a story about a gentleman who decided to speak up when someone was telling a racially charged joke at the table at a wedding. And he was just saying, like, this is my safe space. And it was a white gentleman checking another white gentleman, but he just was like, hey, I can't let that go on around me. So what day-to-day efforts do you have to be able to make yourself a safe space? And then partner with people in diverse communities. So whatever that looks like for you, just expanding what that looks like based on what you do currently. So,
and having those people at the table, because I had a really great conversation with someone, I can't remember if it was earlier in the week or last week, but given perspective, like even as somebody who is Black, there are different types of Black people. So this person just happened to be like Black and queer, but I'm not Black and queer. But being able to be educated about some of the things, like, so having representation at the table, having representation in what it is that you do, or if you are offering something, just making sure that you have people around you who can help you give the best experience possible for all of those who you want to represent.
Yeah, I think it can be compared to, the efforts that you would take to do market research to learn how to sell to someone, making those same efforts when you're coming up with policies and procedures for your workplace, including curriculum and resources.
So that is our spiel of, I feel like, clearly we're for having these spaces, Black spaces, Black entrepreneur spaces, but we're definitely open to answer questions or to even dialogue about this whole, separate spaces, and then also still being able to come together and work and navigate as a full ecosystem. So thank you, Emily. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Give it up for them, or give your clap react if nothing else. You beautiful people, thank you for joining us. I'd love to continue to dialogue if you all are up for it. One thing that I'd love to kick off the discussion with, though, is LoLo, I loved what you were talking about. You didn't use this word, but you were kind of referring to the scarcity mindset of this idea that there's only so many things to go around, and we can't all build at the same time. But I really loved how you put that lifting up everyone around you lifts all of us up as a community. And I think sometimes if you're coming from this scarcity mindset that there haven't been enough resources before, or that there won't be enough money, enough support, enough customers, enough attention, enough media, then it makes you less collaborative and less of a positive community member. But I think it takes taking a risk, I guess, from that perspective a few times to realize this is a compounding or a snowball effect where it gets bigger and bigger. And I think the fashion example was a really good one. I definitely think we see that everywhere, from social enterprise where give back hack lies to larger startups to smaller side hustles as well. Definitely strong ecosystems build stronger and stronger ecosystems. So I loved that you talked about that.
Yeah. And it's something that, unfortunately we deal with in our community. And it's something that even we ourselves we've had conversation of having to get past that barrier ourselves of there's so many different types of resources, but there's so much room for everyone to win. But when I'm from a smaller town, or just even being in our culture, we feel like, okay, if the next person wins, there's maybe not enough room for you to as well shine. And so that's a concept of having to get through of okay, just because one person takes up this space doesn't mean that leaves no room for you. There's literally billions of people on this earth. So there's this wide customer base, but it's just about having to push past that barrier. And so often many people in our community haven't been able to either travel, they haven't been exposed to enough of these billions of people or this outside world that is so much bigger than who we are. Mm-hmm. And so it locks us in that mindset. And last thing I'll say, because I'm from Dayton, but I'm actually I'm from Dayton, but I went to Trotwood, which is a little country suburb outside of Dayton, well, on the outskirts of Dayton. And so a lot of people that I know that I grew up with still live there. And if you still live there, you start to, I know people who have that mindset of like, oh, no. Like I don't want to share my idea. I don't want to share this. I don't want to do this, but it's because they're also limited. You know, they think that their customer base is limited to just the people in that town. And so it's really easy to adopt that mindset when you haven't been exposed to other places. So yeah.
I think we explored it most like in college when we talked about different people's philosophies when it comes to like ethics, but this is really grounded in how you come up. So people that came up through the Great Depression, they have trouble with sharing. They have trouble with, look, chicken's on sale, I'm getting all the chicken in the freezer because, and I could just freeze it and it'll last whenever, because they've gone through a time of scarcity. So I think while it's important to note that we do have this mindset, we have to take the approach that this mindset was built into the BIPOC community. And the only way to really outbuild a mindset is by having an abundance of resources, having an abundance of opportunities, and also potentially training, and like Lo said, being able to give them a different experience, which will then build a different outlook on life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. You kind of blew my mind connecting those dots. I love that. That's awesome.
Yay.
I want to open it up to anyone else. If anyone else has any comments, questions, things that thoughts that were provoked today.
Yeah. So one thought I had was, how do we make it, like, I guess, easy for people who want to invest? I mean, it could be Black, it could be any business that's underserved, because like there are good ideas out there that are getting overlooked because of what the people advancing them look or sound like. And I wonder if making it, for lack of better words, as easy to invest in Black businesses as it is to buy a pair of shoes with one click, if that would help. And because I think that there are a lot of people who want to do business with you, and that part of the problem is, and that these Black spaces solve, is that, you know, when you're a minority and you're discriminated against, you also get dispersed. And so getting together makes it easy to say, oh, hey, I guess I'll drop by and invest or advise or whatever it is.
I like to take that one. So I'll start off on a little bit of a tangent here. I was just yesterday having a conversation with Ben McDougall, who was still on my screen. Sorry about that at the beginning of the presentation. But he's out of Iowa. He's one of the regional representatives for the 1 Million Cups platform. Write that down, 1 Million Cups, Kauffman Foundation. I'll spare you my speech on it, but it's a great resource. It's been an absolutely amazing resource for me. But he had a question. We were talking with a gentleman from a venture capital firm here in Columbus, a person of color as well. And Ben's question was, I don't think there's any women Black VCs that exist. I've looked, I've tried, and he's trying to create a diverse ecosystem for everyone. And he's specifically trying to mix up the diversity in his groups and enter some, you know, people of color that are in venture capital. Mm-hmm. And that conversation led us to start talking about, regardless of race, culture, anything. Again, I like to bring it back and just say, as people, there's these certain trust camps, I'll call them, right? So in Silicon Valley, you've got networks of people that know other people. And there's a trust between, okay, I know Steve or Brian or whoever is gonna, you know, give me some good advice based on his pedigree. I know the type of program he runs, I know whatever. And so it's hard to just have an app. I'll fast forward here for my long description. It's hard to have an app because you still need that interaction. You still need that personal experience to say, okay, this is a vetted source, because there's a lot of snake oil salespeople out here. There's a lot of people with a super side hustle, but they haven't really put a strong foundation into it, right? So the issue is really, if I could be so bold to say, it's not so much the product or the great idea that's invested in, it's the team. This is what I've seen in my experience in other accelerators and just in the ecosystem. It's the team that people buy into. Do I believe that this team has the potential to succeed, right? People will celebrate failure in many accelerators and incubators because they know it's a necessary part of growth and achieving that team bond and making that superior unicorn type product. But let's dial it back. We're talking about mom and pop businesses, Main Street lifestyle businesses, which is our focus. We've got counterparts in the community that are focusing on tech. We've got a bunch of entrepreneur ecosystem players around Columbus, but everybody's kind of got this lane that they're focusing on, right? And so it all boils back down to who's the vetted source, right? If you go through Rev 1, it's understood, you've probably got your stuff together, right? We know that you've checked a bunch of boxes. That's just understood. We just started September of 19 with our first boot camp in January of 20, and then COVID. In the beginning, nobody knew who we were. I was new to the city, right? And it was just a matter of we had to prove ourselves that we were going to push through some businesses and then show success before anybody would even pay us attention. Now, in some ways, last year kind of accelerated the attention that we got, being a Black-owned business that's working in the entrepreneurial space. But still, we need to prove that we're checking boxes, we're following some type of protocol, some quality assurance, if you will, that the people that we push through have a certain level of knowledge, right? We can show the curriculum, this is what they learned, they grasped it, now they're ready for that next step. And if you don't have that proof, and I'm sorry, this went really, really long-winded, but if you don't have that to vet against, it's hard to just say, oh, there's a Black business, I'll just, I'll put some money into them, because it's still business at the end of the day. Right?
Yeah. And you don't want to be that person. Like on some ends, I like the support Black business movement. But then on the other end, it's like, why do we have to even make this a whole thing? Or say go shop Black today.
Well, we all know why, because there's racists out there.
Yes. But we want to get it to a point where
it's just a normal thing.
Yeah, it's like
exactly.
It's a normal lifestyle. And you don't have to think, because when you think shop Black, it's not even like I'm going to this place because I need this. It's really I'm going just to support. Yeah. Instead of making it like I'm going to a Black grocery store. And because I need groceries, I go to Myers all the time without even thinking twice about it. But then on this day, I'm going to do this. So it's really about we just have to continue. It's not going to happen overnight. If you're asking okay, hey, what are some ways that I can invest into businesses? Well, Black businesses will first, support them and then make it a lifestyle of supporting them. It's not just on Thursday, I'm just going to shop Black. It's on I think for the most part, before anything, I try to make it if I need something, I'm going to go to a Black business first. And if I can't find it, then I'm just going to go where I naturally might have went until it feels natural.
Well, and if I could interject real quick, the other side is there's not a plethora of Black businesses in our community that are successful, right? That's part of why we exist, is to help those businesses where they generally would try to skip over some of the fundamental foundational things that need to be done to have a long-term business and to be able to scale that. They skip over it, and so they fail. And so you find that the bodegas, or whatever they're called in Columbus, these corner stores and this, that, and the things that are we're in the Near East Side, King Lincoln, Bronzeville area. Most of the businesses in this community are not Black owned. And so it's hard if there's not even a place to go shop, right? And it's the only option is to go out to Easton or whatever to get the service that you need. So we're trying to help build that core of the business. And it's not an overnight thing. Right. It's a very long-term thing. I would say even generational, to change the mindset and start placing importance in the community on having your stuff together, having your finances together, paying the taxes, all the other things that make these businesses fail.
So that's the next thing, is just getting involved. So if like us, you can volunteer at places like ours. You can, if you have resources, you can extend them over. It's been plenty of times I've asked Emily for resources. Or if you're in a space and you see a lack of diversity, or if you see people not being understanding of the barriers, or if they fail to see that there are barriers that exist for minority businesses, then speak up. So those are ways that you can show up. As far as investing, don't just invest in a Black business. Use the same protocol that you would with any other business. Be smart about it, but just make sure that you're showing up in the way that you can.
Yeah, I guess I should have put it better. It wasn't so much the investing part, but like seeking out people who are otherwise overlooked, because there's probably more potential, like, I don't know how to put it. It's like richer ore, you know? So unfortunately, there are Black female venture capitalists. Urban Geeks put out an article, 10 Black female venture capitalists you should know, like Melissa Bradley, managing partner at 1863 Ventures, Sarah Kunst, managing director, Clio Capital, Arian Hamilton, founder and managing partner at Backstage Capital. Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there.
And we didn't even talk about Zora's House that's here in Columbus, and they're actually building out a fund right now. So there are those spaces, but it's also the visibility of them.
Yeah. But I think keeping in mind that these aren't new things. These are things that have been done over the years for other communities. And it's just going to take some approaches that aren't about, I think Lo said, people over profit. Some approaches that are about what are the outcomes for these businesses versus what is the increase to my investment portfolio, because that's what has been done for other communities. We're just asking for the same thing for people of color. And then I think it's different when you're asking like an individual, but can you drop the link to that article in the chat? And also I do want to point out that you can go to our website and click and buy some stuff, some services, and be fully rest assured that all of that money is going right back into the community. So
there is a donate button on our page.
Yes. I wanted to go over to Yolanda. I saw you raised your hand.
Okay. Hi, I'm Yolanda. Right now, I was born in Dayton, Ohio. So what's up, Trotwood? So
I got a language change. Okay,
yeah.
Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you all. No, I just thought I wanted to get in and bring a little levity. But first, I wanted to say thank you for creating the space that you all have created as a team. Thank you for unpacking. I wrote it all down because I didn't want to forget anything. Thanks for unpacking the challenge. Like, we understand the challenge. We've been living it 400 plus years. We get it. Thanks for modeling what a prosperity mindset looks like and how a business can show that from day to day. So you're actually showing what many of us already know, and that's good because sometimes you know it, but you don't see it a lot. And so logging in today and getting to see you guys was a great reminder. Like, everything is okay. Somebody else is doing what I'm doing, and you're younger than me, and I'm very excited that you're on the planet. The one thing I was thinking, in your unpacking and your opening up a conversation for us, you kind of showed us that this Wizard of Oz framework limits the entire country. It limits the entire country because we have exponential abundance on the planet and in this country. But every time you got your thumb on somebody's forehead, your foot on their back, you are limiting the prosperity that you can enjoy. And so I think the U team is showing us we can have more if we collaborate and if we sweep away some of this pastiche of power. A lot of power is not really power at all, it's fear. And as you went through your steps of how we can support each other and how we can demonstrate these tenets that you've shown us today, and I was like, oh, look at them knocking fear out the building. So I'm so proud to have been here to see you guys today. And I had one question. Do you see yourself bringing in this concept nationally or globally?
From day one, that's always been a roadmap item, is to use Columbus as it is in so many other verticals as the test bed, and then scale out across the country. Obviously, there's nuance in different parts of the country, right? We have very different cultures across our country. So it's not a cookie cutter approach, but we do definitely, I'm from Chicago originally. One of our original founders is from Compton in California. And so it's from day one been our intent that once we kind of get it down, now let's branch it out and take it out as far as we can and share it with as many people as we can. And I also want to make it clear, collaboration is our core competence. And so right now we're branded, but that's what you do. You have to have a brand. We want to share this with, if there's entities already in place and they don't have this and they're looking for this, we want to share what we have. So it's not that we want to have a bunch of U's, urban accelerators all over the country. We just want to have the information and the process all over the country.
And you're geographically in a great space because that whole central Ohio corridor, you know, Ohio is known as, we test things here and then they're launched nationally. Yeah. So it's no surprise that you're doing what you're doing in Central Ohio, and you're already on your way to doing it globally. So thank you. Congratulations.
Thank
you.
We really appreciate it.
And we also saw your nomination for a VC, so we will forward that on. Thanks.
Oh, yes, yes.
Amazing. Anybody else want to say anything before we close out? I have so many notes. Every time I look down, I'm like typing on my notes because this has been just like an incredible conversation. I will say that I can definitely vouch for the radical collaboration and just collaboration being a key to the U, because y'all have been like the easiest people to collaborate with and form a relationship with from the beginning. So I'm super grateful for your continued partnership and collaboration, because it's always an awesome time to work with you all. You definitely have that down, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's really not. I think if anyone's ever tried to form a new partnership before, no matter how informal, it's not always easy to navigate, but super grateful that y'all have held my hand through it, and we've been all the mutual love since then. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Emily. I mean, we survive on the backs of allies. And so, you know, we're at a stage right now where we're able to, we don't turn down a conversation, right? We'll talk with anyone. Yeah. And we're always willing and excited to just share our experiences. We actually have 3 very different backgrounds, although there's that common shared experience that we share as well. But we love talking to other people and answering those hard questions, right? There's stuff that just like we don't always feel comfortable talking about in a room. We know other people have that same thing. And so we want to be that resource as well for all of our allies, for everyone out there to just have these conversations until we can't scale it anymore.
and before we get off, I do want to do like not really a call to action, but it is a call to action. But I would love to, because I see so many different people who are on who might not have the time or might not feel comfortable saying anything, but I feel like there's so many people who are great resources. Like I'm sitting here like, Miss Yolanda, what do you do? So if you guys could like put your information in the chat, just like an email or a way that we can connect with you. Because again, like we said, our core competency is to make sure that we are connecting with our community and we're sharing resources. And so if anyone is a resource, we want to be a resource to you guys because we have assisted with creating culturally competent experiences at other places. So we want to be an experience for everyone, but we also want to help build our our network for the people that we're servicing as well, because we can't do it alone. And if we could, I mean, I would probably have quit. I tried to quit at the beginning, but.
So also Ski is put in our email there. So if you have a very specific idea of how we might be able to collaborate with you or your cause, feel free to email us, your initial thoughts, and we will get you on the calendar so we can have a full blown out discussion about what that looks like.
And hey, Rachel. We go back. We've got history.
Okay.
And I'm going to piggyback off of that for TechLife. I'm going to submit a form in the chat. And TechLife is really trying to promote themselves and have events like these and host events like these. So there's going to be a form in there that has an email registration so that you can get updates from TechLife.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
These types of events.
I just want to thank you guys for having this today. I'm in learning mode, right? And so I just learned a lot today. So thank you for that. I work mostly with tech companies, and I am working with some Black entrepreneurs in the tech space. And I'm not really sure, if there are ways that I can be a resource or help you or not. But if you guys are tied in with Rachel and I have worked together, and I know that she'll help me if there are ways that I can help you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Look forward to chatting with you.
Thanks again for all the great pointers and just great way of explaining everything. You guys were awesome. Loved it.
Thanks, Rachel.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, let's round it out with one. Check out the link that Kevin put in the chat. Make sure you write down everyone's incredible contact information because there's some awesome people in this room. And let's give it up one last time for the U team. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for spending your lunch hour with us. This has been awesome. We will be back next month, but also the U's in the middle of their Ignite week, which they did not even mention humbly. So check out their social media because they have a whole full week that they took time out to spend with us. So they have other programs going on if you love them and want to see more of their faces like I do.
Yes. Thank you so much, Emily.
Yeah. Have an awesome afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Emily, we never got their contact information in the chat.
Yeah, let me grab that. Well, they posted their email at their hello@the UC-bus.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's not right.
I find
you-
Rachel.
Okay.
So I'll put it in now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, they got it.
Okay, I think I see it. I apologize, Emily.
Oh no, you're good. I'm much better to ask and have it than to just assume that you don't have it. They're so awesome.
This was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you were here. Also, I feel like we may have crossed paths in the past, but I don't know where it may.
I used to live in Dublin, and I taught in Dublin schools, and I was doing entrepreneur stuff. I moved back to Southwestern Ohio, I want to say 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, but I used to go to Startup Week events, Startup Weekend. I've been on some teams with Startup Weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever been connected with Give Back Hack before?
Yeah, I've been. I used to go to a lot of Black Hat stuff. Okay,
got it. That's probably where I have seen your name before then. Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you and be reconnected. I feel like I'm really excited about now and just like the next few months, I feel like is this time of reconnections and magic.
Oh, yeah. And then we're in the midst of spring, so everything seems possible in spring.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just soaking in all the positivity, but so good to see you. Thank you for coming.
Get some rest.
Thank you. I will. Thanks so much, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.